For 3,000 years, the Galactic Coalition had thrived in perfect harmony. Wars were ancient history. Disease was eradicated. Death from old age was optional. The universe seemed to bend to their collective will, a testament to what advanced civilizations could achieve when they worked together. They had built paradise among the stars. But paradise, as they would soon discover, was never meant to last. Especially not when it was built on a foundation of lies, and especially not when the most dangerous predator in the galaxy had been quietly watching them from the darkness for centuries, learning their weaknesses, studying their fears, and preparing for the moment when their perfect world would finally meet its match. The Zephyrians called it the Great Silence, the day their long-range sensors detected something impossible moving through the void between galaxies. The Krillian Empire labeled it the coming storm. The peaceful ethereal collective simply whispered of it as the end of all things. But they were all wrong. It wasn't an ending at all. It was a beginning. The beginning of the day they would learn what true terror looked like when it wore a human face. Admiral Zextaros stood before the massive viewport of the Coalition flagship Eternal Harmony, watching the celebration unfold across 1,000 worlds. Fireworks painted the darkness of space in brilliant colors, each burst representing another year of unprecedented peace. 3 millennia without war, without suffering, without the primitive barbarism that had once plagued the galaxy. The Admiral's 4 arms moved gracefully as she adjusted her ceremonial robes, the fabric shimmering with embedded lights that matched her species' natural bioluminescence. As a Zephyrian, she had lived through much of this golden age personally, her lifespan stretching back to the final battles that had established the Coalition's dominance. Those dark days seemed like ancient mythology now. Admiral, her aide, Lieutenant Kors, approached with measured steps. The young Krillian's carapace clicked softly against the deck plating as he moved. The celebration committee requests your presence at the main ceremony. The Council of 12 wishes to begin the traditional remembrance. Zextaron nodded, her large, opalescent eyes reflecting the distant celebrations. Of course, let's honor those who sacrificed so much to give us this peace. As they walked through the corridors of the flagship, the Admiral couldn't help but marvel at the diversity of beings they passed. Crystalline ethereals floated serenely alongside the more traditional bipedal species. Gaseous Vorthians maintained their forms in specialized containment suits, their thoughts transmitted through harmonic frequencies that the ship's translation systems converted to understandable speech. The iron-skinned Draknari stood shoulder to shoulder with delicate Sylphians whose bodies resembled living artwork. This was the true victory of the Coalition, not just peace but unity. 12 major species and hundreds of minor ones, all working together toward common goals. All civilized, all evolved beyond the petty conflicts that had once torn the galaxy apart. The main ceremonial hall stretched across 3 decks of the massive vessel, its transparent aluminum walls offering a panoramic view of space. Representatives from every member world had gathered, their various breathing apparatus, gravity adjusters, and environmental suits creating a magnificent tapestry of diversity. At the center of the hall stood the Memorial Crystal, a towering structure that contained a preserved essence of every being who had died in the Unity Wars 3,000 years ago. Council Speaker Veltana, an ancient ethereal whose form had become more light than matter over her extended lifetime, floated above the assembly. Her voice resonated through the hall without the need for speakers, her words carrying directly into the minds of all present. Fellow beings of the Coalition, she began, her thoughts warm and welcoming. Today marks 3,000 years since the last shot was fired in anger within our borders. 3,000 years since the barbarism of war was relegated to the history archives. 3,000 years of growth, exploration, and peaceful expansion across a quarter of the galaxy. The assembled crowd responded with various forms of approval, applause from species with hands, harmonic resonance from others, and gentle light displays from those who communicated through bioluminescence. We have achieved what our ancestors could only dream of, Veltana continued. Perfect harmony between sentient species. The eradication of poverty, disease, and unnecessary death. Our children grow up in a universe where violence is so rare that it exists only in ancient stories and academic texts. Admiral Zextera felt a deep sense of pride wash over her. It was true. The Coalition had achieved something unprecedented in galactic history. They had learned to share resources efficiently, to resolve conflicts through dialogue and compromise, to explore the universe together rather than fighting over territory. The speaker's form brightened as she approached the climax of her address. Our long-range exploration fleets have mapped 73% of our galaxy. Our scientists have unlocked the secrets of faster-than-light travel, matter manipulation, and consciousness transfer. Our artists create beauty that transcends species boundaries. We have built a civilization that would make any ancient philosopher weep with joy. As if on cue, the memorial crystal began to pulse with soft light, each pulse representing one of the fallen from the Unity Wars. Millions of lives lost in those final conflicts, but their sacrifice had purchased this golden age. But perhaps most importantly, Veltana's mental voice grew solemn. We have learned to look beyond our own galaxy. Our deep space monitoring stations have detected the stirrings of intelligence in neighboring galaxies. Primitive civilizations taking their first steps into space. And when they are ready, we will be here to guide them, to show them the path to peace that we have walked. The ceremony continued with traditional songs from each member species, their combined harmonies creating something beautiful and alien. Zextera found herself thinking about those distant civilizations the speaker had mentioned. How wonderful it would be to share the Coalition's wisdom with fresh species to expand their peaceful federation beyond the borders of their home galaxy. It was during the Krillian throat-singing performance that the first alarm sounded. The sound was subtle at first, just a low harmonic that most species would dismiss as part of the musical arrangement. But Zextera's trained ear recognized it immediately. A priority alert from the Deep Space Monitoring Network. Her personal communicator vibrated against her arm, displaying a message that made her blood temperature drop several degrees. Urgent. Unknown contact detected. Origin. Intergalactic void. Request immediate command presence on bridge. The Admiral excused herself quietly, not wanting to disrupt the celebration. As she made her way to the bridge, she told herself it was probably nothing. A previously unknown asteroid cluster, perhaps, or some exotic stellar phenomenon. The Deep Space Network was programmed to flag anything unusual, and they'd had false alarms before. The Bridge of the Eternal Harmony was a marvel of Coalition engineering. Holographic displays showed real-time data from thousands of monitoring stations scattered across their territory. Sensor operators from a dozen different species worked in perfect coordination, their various forms of communication translated instantly into a unified command language. Report, Zextera ordered as she took her position in the command chair. Commander Haxville, a veteran Draknari with scars from the final Unity Wars, turned from the main sensor array. His iron-gray skin seemed darker than usual. Admiral, we're detecting a massive object entering our galaxy from the direction of the Andromeda Cluster. Initial mass estimates suggest something the size of a small moon. A rogue planet? The Admiral asked, though something in the commander's tone suggested it wasn't that simple. Negative, ma'am. The object is moving under power. Velocity is consistent with artificial propulsion, but he paused, consulting his readings again. The energy signature is unlike anything in our databases. It's not Zephyrian fusion, not Krillian antimatter, not ethereal quantum manipulation. It's something else entirely. Zextera felt a chill that had nothing to do with the bridge's temperature control. Time to intercept. At current velocity, approximately 72 hours until it reaches our outer monitoring stations. Have we attempted communication? Broadcasting on all known frequencies, Admiral. No response. The Admiral stared at the main display, where a tactical projection showed their galaxy with a single red dot approaching from the darkness beyond. In 3,000 years of peace, they had encountered dozens of new species within their galaxy, but never anything from outside. The implications were staggering. Commander, I want a full science team assembled within the hour. Pull our best xenobiologists, engineers, and first contact specialists, and send a priority message to the Council of 12. The celebration may need to be postponed. As she spoke, a new alarm began sounding, this one more urgent. Lieutenant Kors appeared at her side, his carapace pale with stress. Admiral, we're detecting additional contacts. Multiple objects smaller than the first, but still massive. They're moving in formation. The main display updated, showing not one, but 17 distinct objects approaching their galaxy. Each one massive, each one powered, each one maintaining perfect formation as they cross the intergalactic void. It's a fleet, Commander Haxville said quietly, his voice carrying the weight of terrible realization. Someone is coming to visit us, and they're bringing an armada. Admiral Zexteros stared at the display, her mind racing through the implications. First contact protocols had been established for encountering new species within their galaxy, but nothing like this. Whoever these beings were, they possessed technology capable of intergalactic travel and the organizational capacity to mount expeditions of unprecedented scale. Send a message to all coalition worlds, she ordered, her voice steady despite the growing fear in her hearts. Tell them to continue the celebration, but quietly begin moving to defensive positions. And give me a direct line to the Council of 12. We need to decide how to greet our unexpected guests. As the bridge crew rushed to implement her orders, Zexteros couldn't shake the feeling that their golden age was about to face its first real test. For 3,000 years, they had known only peace within their borders. Now, something was approaching from the darkness between galaxies, something unknown and potentially hostile. The celebration continued on the worlds below, fireworks still painting the night sky in brilliant colors. But on the bridge of the eternal harmony, the Admiral and her crew watched as 17 unknown vessels continued their inexorable approach toward everything they had built. 3,000 years of peace was about to meet something they had never prepared for, the unknown. And in the depths of space, aboard the lead vessel of the approaching fleet, creatures that had never known the Coalition's peace began final preparations for their arrival. They had traveled far to reach this galaxy, and they had plans for its inhabitants, plans that would change everything. The celebration below continued, unaware that their perfect world was about to meet visitors who had a very different idea of what civilization should look like. Visitors who had been watching, waiting, and planning for this moment for longer than the Coalition had existed. Visitors who called themselves humans. Dr. Silas Corrin wiped sweat from his scaled forehead as he hunched over the quantum analysis console. The Sylphian scientist had been working for 18 hours straight since the unknown fleet's detection, and his normally pristine laboratory aboard the research station Infinite Curiosity looked like a war zone of scattered data tablets and empty stimulant containers. This can't be right, he muttered to himself, running the calculations for the 7th time. His assistant, a young ethereal named Luxura, floated nearby, with concern radiating from her translucent form. Doctor, perhaps you should rest. The readings will still be here when... No, you don't understand. Corrin's voice carried an edge of panic that made Luxura's form flicker with worry. These energy signatures, the propulsion methods, the material's composition, none of it should be possible. He gestured frantically at the holographic display showing detailed scans of the approaching vessels. Look at this. The largest ship masses approximately 40 million tons, but it's moving at 0.7 light speed through intergalactic space. Do you understand what that means? Luxura's form brightened slightly as she processed the implications. The energy requirements alone would exceed the total output of most star systems. Exactly. And yet our sensors detect no antimatter signatures, no quantum field manipulation, no fusion reactions on that scale. Whatever these beings are using for propulsion, it operates on principles we don't understand. The doctor pulled up another set of readings. But that's not the worst part. Look at the whole composition analysis. The hologram shifted to show molecular diagrams of the alien vessel's outer shells. Where coalition ships were built from standard metallics, ceramics, and synthetic compounds, these ships showed something else entirely. The outer hull appears to be some form of crystallized carbon matrix, but with properties that shouldn't exist. It's simultaneously lighter than our best ceramics and stronger than collapsed matter. And these energy readings... He paused, his hands trembling slightly. Luxera, I think their ships are alive. Before his assistant could respond, the laboratory's communication system activated. Admiral Zexthera's image appeared in the center of the room, her forearms moving in agitation. Dr. Corin, I need your analysis immediately. The Council of 12 is demanding answers, and our first contact team is preparing initial communication protocols. Admiral, Corin began carefully, I recommend extreme caution. These vessels represent technology so far beyond our understanding that we can't accurately assess their capabilities or intentions. Elaborate. Their smallest escort ship could likely destroy any vessel in our fleet without effort. Their energy output suggests weapons that could crack planets. And he hesitated, knowing how his next words would sound. I believe we're not dealing with ships in the traditional sense. These appear to be grown rather than built. The Admiral's expression grew troubled. Grown? You're suggesting biological ships. Possibly. Or something that transcends the biological-mechanical distinction entirely. Admiral, in my professional opinion, these beings have evolved so far beyond us that we might as well be insects to them. During this conversation, light years away aboard the Coalition flagship, Admiral Zexthera was dealing with a crisis that grew worse by the hour. The celebration had been quietly suspended, and every major world was now on alert status. The Council of 12 had been in emergency session for 6 hours, and their debates were becoming increasingly heated. We must assume hostile intent, declared War Master Grixtau, the Draknari representative whose species had once been the Coalition's most fierce warriors before embracing peace. Any civilization capable of mounting an intergalactic expedition possesses the power to destroy us utterly. Council Speaker Veltana's ethereal form pulsed with disagreement. We cannot abandon 3 millennia of peaceful progress at the first sign of the unknown. These beings may simply be explorers like ourselves. Explorers don't travel in battle fleets, Grixtau countered. 17 massive vessels in perfect military formation, they come as conquerors. Admiral Zexthera found herself caught between duty and instinct. Every tactical bone in her body agreed with Grixtau, but everything the Coalition represented demanded they try peaceful contact first. What does our xenopsychology team say? She asked. Dr. Millian Sorath, the Coalition's leading expert on alien psychology, consulted her notes. The elderly Zephyrian had studied every known species in the galaxy and helped establish first contact protocols that had never failed. Without direct communication, I can only speculate based on behavioral patterns, she began. The formation discipline suggests a highly organized society, possibly militaristic in nature. The fact that they haven't responded to our communications could indicate either inability to decode our languages or deliberate choice to ignore us. Or they're studying us, Admiral Zexthera said grimly. Learning our capabilities before making contact. That's what I would do, War Master Grixtau admitted. As the debate continued, new intelligence arrived that changed everything. Lieutenant Kors burst into the council chamber, his carapace practically glowing with excitement and terror. Admiral, we've detected energy discharges from the lead vessel. They're scanning us. Scanning? Veltana asked. What kind of scans? Everything, Speaker. Deep penetration sensors that are mapping our fleet composition, weapons systems, shield capabilities, even our biological signatures. The scans are so detailed they're reading individual heartbeats through our ship hulls. The chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. In all their centuries of peaceful contact, no species had ever attempted such invasive scanning without permission. It was considered the height of rudeness at best, a prelude to attack at worst. How is that possible? Zextera demanded. Our ships are shielded against any known scanning technology. That's just it, Admiral. Their scans are passing through our shields like they don't exist. Whatever they're using, it operates on principles we haven't discovered yet. Dr. Soritha's expression grew troubled. This changes the psychological profile significantly. Such invasive scanning without permission suggests either complete disregard for our sovereignty or the belief that permission is unnecessary. Because they see us as inferior, Grixtal concluded grimly. Meanwhile, aboard the approaching fleet, beings that had never known the Coalition's peace were indeed making final preparations. The lead vessel, Terra's Vengeance, housed a crew that represented humanity's greatest achievement and darkest hour. Captain Elena Vasquez stood before the holographic display showing the Coalition fleet, her augmented eyes analyzing every detail with mechanical precision. Half her body was cybernetic enhancement, the result of injuries sustained during humanity's exodus from their dying galaxy. Behind her, the bridge crew worked with the terrifying efficiency of a species that had survived the unsurvivable. Scan complete, Captain, reported Navigation Officer Chun, his voice carrying the flat tones of someone who had seen too much death to be surprised by anything. 17,000 Coalition vessels detected across their defensive perimeter. Technology level approximately 800 years behind our current capabilities. Weapons analysis? Energy-based primarily. Plasma cannons, particle beams, some experimental quantum disruptors. Nothing that would penetrate our hull armor. Captain Vasquez nodded grimly. They had expected this. The intelligence gathered over centuries of observation had painted the Coalition as peaceful, advanced, but ultimately naive. A civilization that had forgotten how to fight because they had convinced themselves fighting was unnecessary. What about their defensive capabilities? Standard energy shields, ablative armor, some primitive point defense systems. Captain, Chen paused, his scarred face showing something that might have been pity. They're not warriors. These people have never faced real war. The captain's expression remained cold. She had hoped for more resistance. Actually, a quick conquest felt somehow dishonorable after traveling so far. Dr. Harrison, what's your assessment of their biological capabilities? Dr. Margaret Harrison, the expedition's xenobiologist, consulted her readings with the enthusiasm of a scientist presented with entirely new species. Fascinating diversity, Captain. I count at least 40 distinct species in their fleet alone, each with unique physiological adaptations. The Draknari appear to be their primary warrior species, but even they show significant genetic modifications for peaceful coexistence. Weaknesses? Multiple. Most species appear to have extended lifespans, which typically correlates with reduced aggression and slower adaptation to crisis situations. They've been so focused on eliminating conflict that they've bred the warrior instinct out of most of their population. Captain Vasquez turned to her communications officer. Any response to our arrival? Multiple attempts at contact across various frequencies. Captain. Standard greeting protocols in 17 different languages. They're polite. The bridge crew shared looks of grim amusement. Politeness was a luxury humanity had abandoned light years behind them. Orders, Captain? Asked Commander Torres, the ship's tactical officer. His question carried weight beyond the words. They had spent 3 years crossing the intergalactic void, burning through resources that could never be replaced. There was no going back. Begin final approach. Signal the fleet to assume attack formation Delta 7. Captain, Dr. Harrison interjected carefully. Perhaps we should consider establishing communications first. These beings appear genuinely peaceful. They might be willing to negotiate. Vasquez turned to face the scientist, her cybernetic eye whirring as it focused. Doctor, do you know how many peaceful civilizations humanity encountered during our expansion through our home galaxy? No, Captain. 47. Do you know how many of them survived contact with humanity? Harrison's face paled. No, Captain. None. Not because we wanted to destroy them, but because ultimately, in a universe of limited resources, the peaceful always lose to the prepared. The Coalition has had 3,000 years to grow soft. We've had 3,000 years to grow harder. She turned back to the display, showing the Coalition fleet arranging itself in what they probably considered defensive formations. To human eyes trained by centuries of constant warfare, they looked like children playing with toy soldiers. They celebrated their peace, Captain Vasquez said quietly, her voice carrying across the bridge. Now they'll face what that peace has cost them. The communication console chimed with another incoming message from the Coalition fleet. Standard diplomatic frequencies, requesting dialogue, and peaceful exchange of information. Ignore it, the captain ordered. We'll talk to them when we're ready. And when we do, they'll discover what happens when a civilization that forgot how to fight meets one that never learned how to stop. Back aboard the Coalition flagship, Admiral Zexthera watched the unknown fleet continue its approach with growing dread. The scans had stopped as suddenly as they'd started, leaving an ominous silence that felt more threatening than any weapon. Time of contact? She asked. 16 hours at current approach speed, came the response. 16 hours to prepare for something they couldn't understand, couldn't predict, and couldn't fight. 16 hours before their perfect civilization would face its first real test. And, in the depths of space between them, 17 ships full of beings who had never known peace continued their inexorable approach toward a galaxy that had forgotten how to wage war. The first contact chamber aboard the Eternal Harmony had been hastily converted from a diplomatic meeting room into something resembling a war council. Representatives from all 12 Coalition species sat around a circular table that could adjust its atmosphere, gravity, and lighting to accommodate each being's physiological needs. The air hummed with tension as thick as the various breathing gases that kept each delegate alive. Admiral Zexthera reviewed the tactical displays one final time. 12 hours had passed since the unknown fleet had stopped its advance at the edge of Coalition space. They hung there in the darkness, 17 massive vessels arranged in perfect geometric formation, their black hulls barely visible against the star field except for the subtle distortions they created in space itself. They've been motionless for 7 hours, reported Commander Haxville, his iron-gray skin bearing stress patterns that hadn't been seen since the Unity Wars. No communication attempts, no movement, no energy signatures beyond basic life support. They're waiting, observed Dr. Millian Soreth, her aged features creased with worry. The question is, waiting for what? Council Speaker Veltana's ethereal form flickered with agitation. Perhaps they're simply unfamiliar with our protocols. We should attempt another communication. We've sent 47 messages across every known frequency. Admiral Zexthera replied grimly. Either they can't understand us, or they're choosing not to respond. War Master Grixtal leaned forward, his massive frame making the reinforced chair creak. In my experience, silence before battle serves two purposes: to let fear grow in your enemy's heart, or to complete final preparations for attack. These beings are not our enemies, Speaker Veltana insisted, though her usual certainty seemed strained. We know nothing of their intentions. We know they crossed the intergalactic void in a military formation, Grixtal countered. We know they scanned our defenses without permission. We know they ignore our attempts at peaceful contact. What more evidence do we need? The debate was interrupted by Lieutenant Kors, who entered the chamber with obvious urgency. Admiral, we're detecting new activity from the alien fleet. The lead vessel is moving. All conversations ceased as the main display activated, showing long-range sensor data from the Coalition's perimeter stations. The largest of the 17 ships had detached itself from the formation and was moving slowly toward the outer edge of Coalition space. Just one ship? Zexthera asked. Confirmed, Admiral. The others remain in position. Dr. Soreth consulted her psychological profiles. This could be a positive sign. Sending a single vessel suggests they want to establish contact without appearing threatening. Or they're confident that one ship is enough to destroy our entire fleet. Grixtow replied darkly. As they watched, the alien vessel continued its approach toward the Coalition border. It moved with a fluid grace that no Coalition ship could match, its black hull seeming to absorb starlight rather than reflect it. As it drew closer to their monitoring stations, more details became visible. "By the eternal light," whispered Dr. Corrin's voice over the communication link from his research station. "The ship is beautiful." He was right. Despite its ominous black coloring and massive size, the vessel possessed an organic elegance that made Coalition ships look crude by comparison. Its hull flowed in curves that suggested growth rather than construction, and subtle energy patterns played across its surface like bioluminescent displays. "It's definitely alive," Dr. Corrin continued. "I'm detecting neural pattern activity throughout the hull structure. This isn't just a ship, it's a living organism capable of spaceflight." The implications of that statement settled over the chamber like a weight. If these beings could grow vessels capable of interstellar travel, what other biological technologies did they possess? "Admiral," came a new voice over the communication system. It was Commander Ely SSA from Monitoring Station 7, the outermost sensor platform in Coalition space. "The alien vessel has stopped just outside our territory. It's broadcasting something. Audio or visual? Neither. It's some kind of quantum field transmission directly into our communication systems. The message is appearing on our screens as text in perfect Coalition standard." Every being in the chamber fell silent. Coalition standard was an artificial language developed specifically for interspecies communication. No alien civilization should know it, especially not one from outside their galaxy. "Display the message," Admiral Zextera ordered. The holographic projector activated, and words appeared in the air before them. Simple, direct, and terrifying in their implications. "Greetings, Coalition of peaceful species. We are humanity's children, inheritors of Earth's legacy and carriers of soul's memory. We have traveled far to reach your galaxy, drawn by your signals of peace and prosperity. We wish to establish diplomatic relations with your civilization. Please prepare a delegation for formal first contact. We will approach your capital world in 72 hours. The chamber erupted in surprised voices across multiple languages and communication methods. Some delegates expressed relief that the aliens, humans, seemed interested in diplomacy. Others questioned how they had learned Coalition standard and why they had waited so long to communicate. Admiral Zextera raised her arms for silence. "The message is being transmitted in perfect Coalition standard, with full understanding of our diplomatic protocols. This suggests either remarkable linguistic capabilities or they've been observing us for much longer than we realized." Grixtow finished grimly. "There's something else," Commander Ely SSA reported. "The transmission includes a data packet with what appears to be historical information about their species. Permission to download and analyze. Granted, but carefully. Isolate it from our main systems." As the data packet was received and processed, Dr. Soreth began reading through humanity's self-reported history. Her expression grew increasingly troubled as she absorbed the information. "Colleagues," she said slowly, "I think we need to understand what we're dealing with. According to this data, humans originate from a galaxy that experienced complete ecological collapse approximately 3,000 years ago." She highlighted relevant sections of the transmission. "Their homeworld, called Earth, was destroyed by environmental catastrophe caused by rapid industrial expansion. Their species evacuated their entire galaxy as it became uninhabitable, traveling across the intergalactic void in generation ships. So, they're refugees," Speaker Veltana observed with sympathy. "No," Dr. Soreth corrected grimly. "They're survivors. There's a difference. According to their own records, Humanity's evacuation of their galaxy involved a series of wars with other species who competed for the limited space aboard the evacuation vessels. She brought up another section of the data. They described something called the final selection, a period where humanity engaged in systematic warfare against every other intelligent species in their galaxy to secure resources for their journey. The chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. They committed genocide, Grixtal said flatly. They exterminated their entire galaxy to save themselves. It gets worse, Dr. Sorth continued. The data suggests they've been traveling for 3 millennia, which means they've had 3,000 years to modify themselves for warfare and survival. Look at these genetic modification records. New images appeared showing the evolution of human biology over their long journey. Enhanced musculature, improved reaction times, cybernetic integration, extended lifespans, and, most disturbing of all, the systematic removal of what they called pacification genes, genetic markers associated with cooperation and peaceful conflict resolution. They've bred themselves to be warriors, Dr. Sorth concluded. For 3,000 years, they've been selecting for aggression, tactical intelligence, and resistance to psychological warfare. They're not just soldiers. They're the perfected end result of millennia of evolutionary warfare. Admiral Zextera felt cold despite the chamber's controlled atmosphere. Dr. Corin reassessed their capabilities based on this new information. The scientist's voice came through with barely controlled panic. Admiral, if these biological and technological specifications are accurate, a single human soldier could potentially eliminate an entire coalition security team. Their ships aren't just alive. They're evolved specifically for combat. Their smallest vessel outguns our largest battleship. How many humans are in their fleet? Speaker Veltana asked. Unknown, Dr. Korn replied. But based on their ship configurations and the data they've provided about their journey, we're looking at potentially millions of individuals who've spent their entire lives preparing for war. War Master Grixtal stood slowly, his massive frame casting shadows across the chamber. Honored colleagues, I believe we're facing our first true test as a peaceful civilization. These humans claim they want diplomacy, but everything about them screams warfare. They've had 3,000 years to perfect the art of killing, while we've had 3,000 years to perfect the art of not fighting. What do you recommend? Admiral Zextera asked, though she dreaded the answer. We prepare for war while hoping for peace. Mobilize every ship in the coalition fleet. Recall all exploration vessels. Alert every world government to begin emergency protocols. And pray to whatever powers each of our species holds sacred that these humans are more interested in trade than conquest. As if summoned by their conversation, another message appeared on their screens. This one was shorter, but somehow more ominous. We look forward to meeting you. Humanity remembers the Coalition's 3,000 years of peace with great interest. We have much to discuss about the future of the galaxy. The words hung in the air like a threat wrapped in diplomatic language. Admiral Zextera realized that their perfect civilization was about to face something they had never encountered, a species that had survived by becoming everything the Coalition had evolved beyond. Send a response, she ordered finally. Tell them we welcome their delegation to our capital world. Full diplomatic protocols. And she paused, making a decision that would haunt her. Alert the capital's defense fleet to assume maximum readiness positions. What reason should I give for the military alert? Lieutenant Kors asked. Tell them it's a standard precaution for first contact situations, she replied, knowing it was a lie. Nothing about this situation was standard, and the precautions they were taking would probably prove inadequate against beings who had spent 3 millennia perfecting warfare. As the chamber began to empty, each delegate returning to their respective worlds to prepare for humanity's arrival, Admiral Zextera remained behind, staring at the tactical display showing 17 black ships hanging motionless at the edge of their space. 3,000 years of peace were about to meet 3,000 years of war. She could only hope that civilization would survive the encounter. In the depths of space, Aboard Terra's Vengeance, Captain Elena Vasquez reviewed the coalition's response with cold satisfaction. Their acceptance of a diplomatic meeting was expected. Peaceful species always try diplomacy first. It would give her people the time they needed to position themselves properly. Captain, reported Dr. Harrison, analysis of their defensive preparations suggests they're taking our arrival seriously. Fleet movements indicate they're preparing for potential hostilities while maintaining diplomatic posture. Smart, Vasquez acknowledged, but not smart enough. They're still thinking like a peaceful civilization trying to deter aggression. They don't understand that sometimes aggression isn't about resources or territory. "What's it about then, Captain?" asked a young ensign. Vasquez looked at him with eyes that had seen the death of worlds. "Sometimes it's about survival, and humanity has been surviving for a very long time." The capital world of Harmony Prime had never seen such preparation for a diplomatic meeting. Every surface-to-orbit defense platform hummed with barely contained energy, their crews maintaining the fiction that this was routine security for an important first contact. The truth was more disturbing. Every military analyst in the coalition had reviewed humanity's self-reported capabilities and reached the same terrifying conclusion. They were preparing to meet beings who could exterminate them without effort. Admiral Zexthara stood in the observation deck of the Planetary Defense Headquarters, watching as the human delegation ship descended through Harmony Prime's atmosphere. The vessel was smaller than their main battleships, but still dwarfed anything in the coalition's diplomatic fleet. As it approached the designated landing zone, its organic curves and black, light-absorbing hull created an impression of a massive predator descending from the stars. Sensor readings confirmed 12 life signs aboard the diplomatic vessel, reported Commander Haxville. Human biosignatures show elevated adrenaline, enhanced muscle density, and cybernetic implants that our scanners can't fully penetrate. 12 humans to represent their entire civilization, observed Dr. Soreth. Either they're supremely confident or supremely arrogant. With their capabilities, the distinction may be meaningless, Grixtau replied grimly. The ship landed with fluid grace in the center of the diplomatic complex, a crystalline structure that had been built to accommodate any conceivable alien physiology. As the landing ramp extended, Admiral Zexthara felt her four hearts beating in complicated rhythms. 3,000 years of coalition history were about to face their greatest test. The first human to emerge was a woman who moved with predatory efficiency. Captain Elena Vasquez wore what appeared to be a formal diplomatic uniform, but Admiral Zexthara's experienced, I recognized the subtle signs of integrated armor and concealed weapons. Behind her came 11 other humans, each carrying themselves with the controlled alertness of professional soldiers. "Welcome to Harmony Prime," Admiral Zexthara said as she approached the human delegation, her words translated simultaneously into hundreds of languages for the assembled crowd of coalition representatives. "I am Admiral Zexthara of the Zephyrian Space Command and current coordinator of coalition defense forces." Captain Vasquez studied her with eyes that seemed to catalog every detail: escape routes, weapon positions, defensive capabilities. When she smiled, it was the expression of someone who had learned diplomacy as a form of psychological warfare. "Thank you for receiving us, Admiral. I am Captain Elena Vasquez, speaking for the Human Exodus Fleet and the survivors of Soul's children. We bring greetings from the darkness between stars and hope for a new beginning in your galaxy." The words were perfectly diplomatic, but something in the way she delivered them made Admiral Zexthara's skin crawl. This was not the speech of someone seeking refuge or partnership. This was the speech of someone claiming territory. "Please, accompany us to the diplomatic chambers," the Admiral said, gesturing toward the crystalline complex. "The Council of 12 is eager to learn more about your people and your journey." As they walked through the complex, Captain Vasquez and her team observed everything with the systematic attention of tactical analysts. They noted the positions of security stations, the materials used in construction, the number and types of guards present. To trained coalition observers, their behavior was obviously that of soldiers conducting reconnaissance. The main diplomatic chamber was a marvel of coalition engineering, capable of adjusting its environment to accommodate any known form of life. As the human delegation took their seats across from the assembled coalition representatives, the contrast between the two civilizations became stark. The coalition delegation was a masterwork of diversity. 12 species who had learned to work together despite radically different physiologies, psychologies, and evolutionary backgrounds. They radiated the calm confidence of beings who had solved the fundamental problems of interspecies cooperation. The human delegation was something else entirely. 12 individuals who moved with perfect coordination, who watched everything and everyone with tactical awareness, and who carried themselves with the authority of people accustomed to making life and death decisions under extreme pressure. Council Speaker Veltana's ethereal form brightened as she began the formal greeting. Honored representatives of humanity, the Coalition of Peaceful Species welcomes you to our galaxy. We hope this marks the beginning of a long and prosperous relationship between our civilizations. Captain Vasquez nodded politely. We share the hope, Speaker. Humanity has traveled far to escape the death of our home galaxy. We seek a new place to rebuild our civilization. The galaxy is vast, observed Representative Keelda of the Crystalline Peoples. Surely there is room for all of us to prosper together. Indeed, Vasquez agreed, though her smile didn't reach her eyes. Though we should discuss certain practical matters regarding territorial arrangements and resource allocation. Admiral Zexthera felt a chill at those words. In 3,000 years of coalition expansion, territorial discussions had always been collaborative affairs involving careful environmental surveys and mutual agreement. The way Vasquez spoke of territorial arrangements suggested something far more unilateral. What specific territories interest your people? Asked Dr. Soreth carefully. Captain Vasquez activated a holographic projector that materialized a three-dimensional map of the galaxy. Red zones appeared across approximately 30% of coalition space, including some of their most densely populated systems. These regions offer the environmental conditions most suitable for human habitation, she explained matter-of-factly. We estimate they could support approximately 2 billion humans initially, with expansion potential for future generations. The chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. The highlighted territories contained over 400 coalition worlds, home to billions of beings who had lived in peace for millennia. Those systems are already inhabited, Speaker Veltana said carefully. Surely alternative arrangements could be made. We're aware of the current inhabitants, Vasquez replied with the same calm tone. We're prepared to offer relocation assistance to coalition citizens who wish to evacuate those territories before our colonization efforts begin. The word evacuate hung in the air like a weapon. War Master Grixtal leaned forward, his massive frame radiating controlled hostility. You speak of evacuation as if resistance is not an option, he observed. Captain Vasquez turned to face him directly, and for the first time, her diplomatic mask slipped slightly. In her eyes, Grixtal saw something that made his iron-gray skin pale, the cold certainty of someone who had never lost a war. Resistance is always an option, War Master. However, our analysis suggests it would be counterproductive for all involved. The Coalition has enjoyed 3,000 years of peace. Humanity has endured 3,000 years of war. The mathematical outcome of any conflict between us is unfortunately predictable. You threaten us, Grixtal stated flatly. I inform you, Vasquez corrected. Threats are tools of deception used when outcomes are uncertain. I'm simply explaining reality as we see it. Admiral Zexthera stood slowly, her diplomatic training warring with her military instincts. Captain Vasquez, are you saying that humanity intends to claim coalition territory by force if necessary? I'm saying that humanity intends to claim territory necessary for our survival. We would prefer to do so through negotiation and cooperation. However, our experience has taught us that peaceful solutions are not always possible. Dr. Harrison, one of the other humans present, activated her own projector. Perhaps I can provide some context. Our analysis of coalition defensive capabilities suggests that your combined fleet could delay our colonization efforts by approximately 18 months. During that time, billions of beings would die unnecessarily, infrastructure would be destroyed, and the eventual outcome would remain unchanged. She displayed casualty projections that made several coalition delegates recoil in horror. Alternatively, organized evacuation over the next 2 years would result in minimal loss of life and allow your people to relocate to territories that humanity has no interest in claiming. This is madness, Speaker Veltana declared, her form flickering with agitation. You arrive claiming to seek diplomacy, then present us with ultimatums for surrender. Not surrender, Captain Vasquez corrected gently. Accommodation. The universe is not large enough for unlimited expansion by multiple civilizations. Someone must yield territory, and logic suggests it should be those least capable of defending it. Commander Torres, another human delegate, spoke for the first time. Our projectors show that 68% of current coalition territory is underutilized by your standards. Your people could relocate to those regions and maintain population density equivalent to your current levels. While humanity claims the most habitable and resource-rich systems, Admiral Zexthera said bitterly. Correct, Vasquez acknowledged without shame. Survival is not fair, Admiral. It never has been. The coalition delegates exchanged glances filled with shock and growing anger. This was not first contact, as they understood it. This was conquest disguised as diplomacy. And if we refuse your generous offer? Grixtal asked, his voice carrying the edge of barely controlled rage. Captain Vasquez consulted a device on her wrist. Our main fleet will arrive in 16 days. Colonization operations will begin immediately upon their arrival. Coalition forces that attempt to interfere will be neutralized with minimal necessary force. She paused, her expression becoming something that might have been sympathetic on a less frightening face. We genuinely hope that won't be necessary. Humanity has no desire to exterminate the coalition. You've built something beautiful here, a peaceful, cooperative civilization that represents the best of what intelligent life can achieve. Then why destroy it? Dr. Soreth asked desperately. Because beauty is a luxury that survival cannot afford, Vasquez replied simply. And humanity has been surviving for a very long time. The meeting continued for several more hours, but the essential character never changed. The humans presented detailed plans for coalition relocation, offered technological assistance for the transition, and even suggested frameworks for future cooperation once territorial arrangements were settled. They were unfailingly polite, professionally competent, and absolutely immovable on their core demands. As the session ended, Admiral Zexthera found herself walking beside Captain Vasquez toward the human ship. The diplomatic protocol demanded she escort their guests personally, though every instinct screamed at her to order their arrest. Tell me something honestly, she said as they approached the landing ramp. Do you feel anything about what you're asking us to do? Any regret about destroying 3,000 years of peace? Captain Vasquez paused at the entrance to her ship, turning to face the Admiral with an expression of genuine sadness. Admiral, do you know what humanity's greatest tragedy is? It's not the death of our homeworld or the extinction of our galaxy. It's that we remember what peace was like. She gestured back toward the diplomatic complex where coalition representatives were undoubtedly beginning to plan for war. Your people have had 3 millennia to perfect cooperation. We've had 3 millennia to perfect survival. We know exactly what we're asking you to give up because we gave up the same thing long ago. Then why? Zexthera asked. Why continue this cycle? Because the alternative is extinction, Vasquez replied. And humanity has decided that existence even flawed existence is preferable to noble death. Your coalition will survive this transition, Admiral. Changed, diminished perhaps, but alive. That's more than our home galaxy can claim. As the human ship lifted off into the darkening sky, Admiral Zexthera stood alone on the landing platform, watching as 17 black shapes became visible in orbit above. The human fleet had arrived early, their massive forms blotting out familiar constellations. 3,000 years of peace were ending not with the dramatic clash of ideologies or the passionate fury of religious war, but with the cold, practical mathematics of survival. Humanity had crossed the intergalactic void not as conquerors seeking glory, but as refugees who had learned that in a universe of limited resources, the strong must take from the weak or perish themselves. The celebration was over. The Coalition's golden age was ending. And, across the galaxy, billions of beings who had never known war were about to learn what their peaceful paradise had cost them when it finally met something that understood the price of survival. In 16 days, they would discover what happened when a civilization that had forgotten how to fight faced one that had never learned how to stop fighting. Humanity had come home, and home would never be the same.